everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of Bill Has Opinions, the Gen X Problem with a Drinking show. I am Laura LaVoy, and I'm here with Bill Perkins, who has opinions. Welcome, everybody. So, how are you doing? This is our first show in a couple weeks.
It is, yeah. No, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Can't complain.
You just got back from vacation.
Got back from vacation.
So,
I cannot complain.
I mean, sometimes you can, but you get back from vacation, you're like, well, that sucks because now I'm back from vacation. I don't know.
I'm self-employed, so every day's vacation.
I guess there's that, yeah.
It's all good. So, anything new going on in the life of Bill?
Not really. I don't think so. Nothing to speak of, really, no.
Well, all right then. Well, then we might as well just get into things because we've got a big show today.
We do, and we're not going to cover.
We will not. I have like several pages of notes for today's topic because if there was one, well, actually, we'll wait a second because there is one other very important part of the show. What are you drinking?
Oh, what am I drinking? Something you gave me. What was it?
It was a sweet. I didn't bring the can, but it's a Sweetwater Highlight.
It was like a light IPA. I'm trying to diet a little bit, although tonight's my cheat night, so but I'm like not going to eat shit, and so they had a light IPA, which I hope is lower carbs or something.
It was 5 carbs.
5 carbs, that's reasonable.
So
I'm trying to limit myself. On normal days, I'm trying to limit myself to around 100 carbs. Again, Bill has a pizza later, so it's
not today.
It's cheat night.
Not today, Satan. Not today.
Yeah. Or yesterday, Satan, because I am doing it today. I'm trying to limit myself normally, but tonight I've decided that Bill has opinions. We have to drink. It's too much hassle to not drink, and it makes the show sucky.
Yeah, so, I mean that is kind of the point. The point of the show is that we drink and then ramble on about shit.
So it's cheat night. So I'm just doing what I want. But I'm still kind of sort of minding my carbs and whatnot. So,
that's fair.
So I have that because you said that's only 5 carbs, and then next on deck I've got the Shiner Bock, well the Shiner label anyway.
Yes.
Ruby Red, which is a red grapefruit ginger. It tastes like ginger ale with some grapefruit juice in it. Honestly, you don't even taste the alcohol. You can get messed up on these pretty easily. But it is only 3.1 carbs and 95 calories a beer. I was actually at the store the other day trying to find some light, some diet beer, if you will.
Diet beer.
And I've had some. I was telling Laura earlier, I drank a really shitty beer that was advertised like, hey, here's the beer for you people on a diet, but it just tasted like PBR.
Yeah, you had one earlier, and I had a sip of it, and it was just...
It was actually like watered down PBR. It wasn't even as good as a PBR.
It wasn't good. I even really like a lot of like American-style lagers, but this was not...
I would have been happier just buying like a 6 of Narragansett or something, and it probably would have been about the same, honestly.
Right.
Calorie and carb-wise,
Right. So in a few weeks, actually, I did schedule a beer show because it's been like a year since we've done one.
Yeah.
But I'm just drinking Founders All Day IPA because what I'll tell you, and we'll get more into this in the beer show in a couple weeks, is I am tired of like super flavored beers. I just want like a beer flavored beer. I just want it to be like, and I like IPAs, so I'll give it a little hops, but like I can't do any more fancy flavored beers.
I'm kind of getting there too. I think I was telling you guys this 2 weeks ago that like I can see myself in the next year or so just being a fan of just like German style Kolsch's and nothing else, like because I'm just tired of crazy ass flavors. Like they're just getting in my way.
Yeah. Like, absolutely. All I want is a goddamn beer flavored beer. But I do want to point out this neat glass I got, Georgia Beer Day.
Awesome.
We accidentally stumbled across a brewery in St. Simon's Island while we were traveling, and it turned out we were there on Georgia Beer Day, and we got to keep this fancy glass.
Well, that's awesome.
Isn't it cool?
I love that kind of thing when that just happens to you. It's like the other week when we went to New Orleans and we didn't think we were going for Mardi Gras, but it turns out that they Mardi Gras for like a month.
Right.
So
right.
You know.
Right. All right. So the actual topic of today's show, and the reason So this is probably one of the most formative experiences for most Gen Xers, I would say. Like, we all had some touch with the Satanic Panic. And that's what we're talking about today.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So why don't you, I know I have a couple of slides for you. Do you want me to start with them, or do you want to start first?
Yeah, you'll know when to come in with that stuff. Okay.
All right.
So first off, I lived in a very small southern town growing up during my formative years, and I remember one time. Well, I guess let's see. So I was very into rock and roll and stuff like that, but at the same time, I was mildly. I don't know if I was mildly. I was pretty religious for a while when I was a kid, and. I remember one time at church youth group. Well, I mean, I had several incidents at church youth group, but one of them, when I went to the Baptist church, was they came in and they had this whole spiel about how all these things that you like, basically fun is bad.
Right.
If you're doing something fun, that's probably a sin. It's leading you down the primrose path to the devil, blah, 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 blah. And that's, I guess, the larger arcing thing. But this one time, this was when I gave up on that and I went to the Methodist church, which is a tad more liberal. But one night they brought this lady in, this old lady. She came in to tell us about Satanism. And
right, because little old ladies are the foremost expert on Satan.
Oh, yeah, they know all about it, right?
Exactly. Don't trust little old ladies. They're out doing all the rituals in the woods.
You know what? I will say this, though. That being said, the character, you've probably not seen it, but Rosemary's Baby, the horror movie.
I am familiar.
The scariest character in it is actually the lady who plays Aunt Bee's friend Clara on Mayberry. But she's like one of the coven members,
right?
And that terrifies you. It's like Angela Lansbury in the Manchurian Candidate,
right?
Because you're so used to her being this sweet lady that when you see her being evil, you're just like, oh my god, that's twice as terrifying, Anyway, so this old lady comes in to tell us about Satanism and stuff, and she brings in this like handout, and it's got all these like symbols on it.
Oh, would it be this handout?
Well, it wasn't exactly this, but it was very similar to this. I want to say that the handout I received did not actually have a proper Baphomet on it. It only had like a pentagram, which is actually like good luck, but it had a lot of these other things. Oh, it didn't have the Leviathan cross either. It didn't have actually any proper satanic symbols on it.
Right, exactly. So I did a little close up too, just so that we could.
But it did have. I do remember it had peace and anarchy.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And I remember because I actually raised my hand and I was like, "Hey, anarchy. Why is that a symbol for Satanism?" And she's like, "Well, it's anti-authority." And I'm like, well, wasn't Jesus Christ anti-authority?
Well,
and then she was like, she gave me a look like, shut the fuck up, you smart ass, So
check this out. In the middle of it is the Holy Earth symbol, which is, as far as I know, from some amalgam, some white person's version of a Native American religion.
I was about to say it looks Native American.
Yeah, it's just, how is that Satanism?
Well, so I don't know. We were just talking about this earlier before the show about how because I was unaware that, about Catholic zealots, mostly because I didn't grow up in that situation. But Protestant zealots tend to think that anything that's not Protestantism is a type of paganism.
Sure, including Catholicism.
Right. So, any paganism is also Satanism, basically, right?
Right. That's another topic. Honestly, could be another show.
That's the way I was brought up, though, in the tradition of the Baptist church. Is if you're not Baptist, you're going to hell.
Right.
So anything that's not Baptist, regardless of what it is, if it's any kind of Eastern thing, that's why the and the Ankh and all that kind of shit, those are satanic symbols, because anything that's not of God is of Satan.
Right.
So it's just this, you're either with us or you're against us kind of thing.
Exactly.
But that whole thing, I just thought it was funny because that list of symbols, the one that I was given at the time, like I said, it had like peace and anarchy and a couple of things. It had a pentacle on it, but it didn't have an actual upside down pentacle.
Right. So a pentacle, like all that happy little wicked.
And it certainly didn't have. I think the lady was probably scared to print out a picture of the actual Baphomet.
Right, because that would be literal Satan.
Right. but it didn't have the Leviathan cross on it. It didn't have the sigil for Lucifer or any sigils that you could actually use to summon a demon, because again, that's probably too close to home.
Right.
So it was kind of funny that, it was like just this, like, again, rudimentary bullshit. But the other thing I wanted to mention was in my town also, at some point and sometimes some kids got drunk or something and they spray painted a barn or something, like kids do. It was kind of similar to this. I think actually they didn't actually say Hail Satan. I think there was a pentagram and it said Motley Crue. And the paper ran a story about possible satanic activity in the area.
Right.
And then there was like a follow-up article that was how to tell if your kid's a Satanist.
Uh-huh.
And of course, here's how I'm going to give you some tips on how to tell if your kid's a Satanist. It was like your kid wears some black.
Uh-huh.
Your kid has a few close friends, not a huge, like they're not the most popular kid in school, basically.
Right.
They don't like sports. They're sort of individualistic, if you will. They're not easily led, maybe.
Right.
It basically just described me. And I read the thing. It was just like, harumph. And I had to actually go to my mom and say, hey, you see this article? She's like, yeah. I'm like, this is nonsense, okay? I'm just letting you know. It's just bullshit.
Right? So it's funny you bring up all that from personal experience, right? So one of the things I did today was watch the Law Enforcement's Guide to Satanic Cults, which you can watch on YouTube. It's like an hour and 20 minutes, so I actually did sort of, pick through it. But it included how you can spot young adults who might have punctuality problems or cleanliness problems. That's apparently a Satanist.
Wait. Problems in which way or the other? They're too early or they're too late?
They're late. I think they were implying that they're lazy, unclean, and late.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't actually have that trait. I actually always show up 10 minutes early to everything.
Yeah, I'm fucking early all the time. But
if you're not early, you're late, I always say.
Absolutely true. So they had 3 levels of Satanism. Mm-hmm. You've got the dabblers, who are the kids that are into video games and graffiti. Mm-hmm. And then this came out in like 1992 or something like that. Then you have spiritual involvement, who are people that just worship together, like go out into the woods and hail Satan. And then you have criminal involvement, where they think they can gain power through killing people, of which, of course, none happened. Like that was part of the that's why we call it the Satanic Panic. Nothing happened.
Well, nothing happened because of Satanists. I mean, you can gain power from killing people. That's not a lie. You can gain power from killing the right people.
Sure.
If someone stands in your way, say you're in a third world country and you're the second top general.
Say, for example, you're Volodymyr Zelensky and you happen to just maybe kill Vladimir Putin.
Right.
Like you probably have some power.
You may gain some power that way. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
For example,
there are ways to advance by killing people.
For sure.
I don't think it has anything to do with Satanism, really.
Correct. Yeah.
And this is one of the things, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here to say this so early in the show, but I want to get this out of the way and mention that I would say for 98% of people who consider themselves Satanists, Satanism is the theatrical wing of atheism.
That is absolutely correct.
All this shit I'm wearing, I don't believe in either a god or a devil. I do own a lot of satanic items, and it's because I think it's all very funny and because it spooks the squares. Basically, that's the angle I go at it from. It's like woo,
right? And the Church of Satan, as it exists today, really exists as they have a lot of power behind them to go after freedom of religion cases.
Yes.
And they do it specifically to prove how stupid they are.
Right.
So you put up a monument to the 10 Commandments in your city hall. They raise enough money to put up a Baphomet statue. And it's not because they honestly, whether they do or not is actually irrelevant. It isn't necessarily because they honestly worship. It's that they're showing you how fucking stupid this is.
Right. Because under the equal, whatever you call it, equal But anyway, they show up and say
freedom of religion.
Right, under freedom of religion, if you're allowed to put this up, then we're allowed to put this up.
Exactly.
And then that usually makes people go, we'll just take that down.
Yeah,
because we don't want the devil on the damn court steps.
Exactly.
And then they go, fine, point proven. And to this day, I guess they only have had to commission one damn Baphomet statue because all they do is just haul it around on the back of a truck and scare the fuck out of people with it. And then they go, okay, whatever. The other thing I wanted to say is about Satanists is at worst, Satanists are hedonists.
Right, sure.
Who live for themselves.
Yes.
And at best, they are secular humanists who are actually like trying to, I say, and I'm speaking again of the Church of Satan, who actually put a lot of money towards things like reproductive health for women in states where they try to ban abortion. They've gone in and done the same kind of thing. Like they basically, if they use religion as an excuse to ban abortions in states, they come in and say, hey, well, our religion says that abortions are a thing we do.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah. And they do present it in kind of an absurd way, like it's a ritual to have an abortion. But the whole point is that they're fighting for, like, they're taking it to the extreme to fight for literally basic human rights.
It's kind of this flying spaghetti monster without the funniness of the flying spaghetti.
And hey, I'm all about the flying spaghetti monster too.
But that's what that is too. Is just an
sure.
exercise in
absolutely.
In, like, hey, we can talk bullshit too if you like bullshit.
Absolutely. All right, so we should probably take a quick break and plug a friend, right?
Let's do it.
So I think the one that makes the most sense here is our scariest friend.
Our scariest?
Yeah, so that would be Michael Keane.
Right? Oh, yeah. He is pretty spooky.
He's pretty spooky. He does make some pretty funny movies.
I think he's actually, you know what? I want to say he's actually been picked up by Screen Rant now.
He has indeed.
As his commentary. He I don't know how much money this guy spends on B horror movies from the 1980s, but he must have the biggest collection of that crap. But he will tell you what to buy and what not to buy on that regard. And then also he's in the middle of, I think he's making a movie right now.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's his third movie.
Right? And I just gave him $10 the other day because I told him I'd give it to him after payday, and then it was payday, and so I did.
So you gave him money. So yes, Michael Keane, check him out. He's definitely worth watching. He's pretty funny. He's got a dry sense of humor, and we love him. He used to live here in Asheville, but then he moved to Vegas. But go check him out because it's super cool stuff. And he actually isn't that evil, I will say. But he does do a lot of horror movie stuff. So I thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, it's probably the most evil person we know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't try not to associate ourselves with that many evil people.
I mean, he's not really evil at all.
It's not at all evil, to be honest.
But he's got an aesthetic. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
He's got an aesthetic.
He does. He does indeed. All right. So I know that there's absolutely no way in hell, no pun intended, that we are going to hit all of the points because this is a big topic.
Right.
And it was so influential to us as kids. I was cut off from a lot of pop culture as a child. Like, my mother didn't want me to watch MTV and stuff. Yeah. But even still, because the Satanic Panic showed up on daytime talk shows and Oprah and Geraldo and Donahue and all that, like, it was still something, like, I didn't have to deal with the legit, like, I had friends who grew up in the South who, like, got taken out of public school because they were so worried about
Which is funny because all the people I knew who got put in a private school just learned advanced, like, it was basically like junior prison.
Right.
It was like, how they say, like, when they send innocent people to prison, they just learn how to become crooks.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Like, if you got sent to a private school, because half the kids were in private school because they got kicked out of public schools, right? Like, their parents had to put them in a private school because otherwise they were going to get no education because they'd already been expelled.
Right, exactly.
So the kids who got sent there for religious reasons just paired up with some future criminal and learned some, like, hey, I'll show you how to cook meth or what.
Well, and then also, yeah, exactly. And just like a lot like prison, once you get let out of these, especially alternative schools, you couldn't reintegrate back into society. Like, nobody would let you back in. So you're just like, I got to figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
So they did. And sometimes it was not. Okay. So that being said, I think we should probably start, because there's no way we'll get through everything. So I think the core of the Satanic Panic was unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse, right?
Sure.
Like law enforcement across the country said the Satanists are killing babies, and there was not a single solitary case that actually
like where were the bodies?
Right.
Where were the bodies? Like this is the thing. Like any crime or any comic book. I always say this at the end of any comic book movie that we go to watch. Like, was there a body? And that guy's coming back. Like, he's not dead.
Exactly. So I suppose we should bookend this with two of the most important cases.
Sure.
So ones that actually did make it to
trial,
like where people were legit accused. So let's start with the 1983 case of the McMartin Daycare.
Okay.
And that was the one that started making the rounds on the talk shows and all these things. So I got more notes than I could possibly read. But in the short of it is a mother of a small child, a daycare age child, I don't remember how old he was, preschool, like 4. She reported to police that her son had been sodomized, and her reason for this was because he was having painful bowel movements. So this is a toddler. Like, this toddler, instead of getting actual medical care that he probably needed because he was constipated as fuck, actually went through like a decade-long trial instead.
Yeah.
And
never got the milk of magnesia that he really needed.
Like, let's talk about abuse, people. Like, if we're going to look at abuse, the abuse was not on the part of the daycare that apparently abused him.
I was telling Laura before, when she brought this up, that, I live with toddlers. My grandchildren live with me, and I will say, if you don't monitor what they eat, they will eat cheese every meal.
I mean, so would I, to be fair.
Yeah, but you know better. That's the thing. You know, like the third time that you eat cheese, that you need to eat some collars.
Yeah, no, I know that if I eat a whole brick of cheese, I'm going to be in a world of hurt.
But these kids will keep eating. Like, they're like, hey, can I have another Kraft single? And I'll be like, no, you've had enough Kraft singles. Eat some applesauce, And then, but anyway, so I get it. Like, this is the thing kids do because they're picky eaters and cheese is fucking delicious. But
right.
But, like I said, as adults, we know this is a thing you don't do. You don't just eat cheese all the time and nothing else.
Yeah, but this poor child. Like,
right.
I just, it's not the unsubstantiated abuse. Like, it was a literal abuse.
Yeah, the literal abuse of letting him be constipated.
Right.
Like that. Right.
So some of the accusations are described as bizarre and overlapping with accusations that that were part of the emerging satanic ritual abuse panic. So it was alleged that in addition to having been sexually abused, they saw witches flying around. I mean, again, these are 4-year-olds. Of course they saw witches flying around. Traveled in a hot air balloon and were taken through underground tunnels.
Seems feasible.
And when shown a series of photographs by the McMartin's lawyers, the defendant's lawyers, one child identified actor Chuck Norris as one of the abusers.
That sounds reasonable to me, too.
So these are 4-year-olds that through the course of the trial, I mean, they didn't get that much older. So these are...
That's some of those bad memes about Chuck Norris. Like, Chuck Norris can fuck you in the ass from across the country. Like...
Oh, my God. So, yeah. So this whole thing happened. I mean, it lasted for years. It was January 18th, 1990, that after 3 years of testimony and 9 weeks of deliberation, that the McMartins, the owners of the daycare, were acquitted because none of the shit made sense.
But even that being said, acquitted is not the same thing as got to go back to your fucking normal ass life.
No, not at all. No.
Like, they probably had to leave town. And they were never going to run a daycare again, I'm guessing. Like, this whole thing, what a fucking situation you be put in. Like, because, and here's the funny thing to me about the idea of any of this shit, is that I'm a very Occam's razor kind of person. Like when somebody tells me a story,
the easiest.
Yes, the most simple solution is probably the right one. You know?
Right, exactly. The most reasonable explanation.
Right, and this seems like unreasonable explanations. This is all like stuff out of some damn novel or some contrived crazy movie. Like I don't know. Like it all sounds very silly to me.
Well, and it's really weird that they just jumped straight to satanic ritual abuse. Like, even if, okay, you're like, my child is having abdominal distress, and I feel it might be because of some sort of abuse. Like, they went for ritual satanic abuse.
Right.
Like, that's where they leapt to. That's a big leap. And even there was no evidence of actual abuse either in this case, which has shown to. So this leads us to real briefly talking about recovered memory therapy and false memory syndrome, which is a lot of what this came from.
Right.
So there was a school of psychology in the early 80s and it was led by a woman named Barbara Snow. She was one of them. But she would do therapy with little kids and who would then remember repressed memories of abuse.
Uh-huh.
But it was all suggested memories because they didn't have memories of abuse.
Right.
So this woman said, "Oh, but did witches fly around?" And of course, the little kids can be like, "Sure, witches flew around. That sounds cool."
Yeah. And this was the other thing I was talking to Laura about pre-show. Also living with toddlers. Toddlers like drama, and they like when they tell a story, they learn the parts that you respond to. And the next time they tell the story, they embellish it with more of that sauciness to get a bigger rise out of you. So this kind of thing, being led is one thing, but then also next time I tell the story, I know to tell it a little bit more exciting. Put some more of that crazy stuff. Put a little more sauce on it. People are like, oh my God, really?
Exactly.
I mean, not just having my grandchildren live with me, but I remember my son was the same way when he was a kid too. He would do the same thing. He'd tell some crazy yarns, and if I had time, I'd tell you one of them. But
yeah, right. Fair enough. That's a different show.
So
in the end, the McMartin case lasted 7 years, cost $15 million. Mind you, this is in the 80s, right?
Jesus, who paid this money?
I think because it was they had defenders, this defenders and stuff. It was the longest and most expensive criminal case in the history of the United States legal system. Like that's still the case.
Damn.
And ultimately resulted in no convictions. The McMartin preschool was closed. Obviously, the building was dismantled. They did not find hidden tunnels underneath, by the way, which was part of the allegation.
It seems like that would have cleared it up right away.
It really does.
All you had to do was go get a backhoe over there and go, oh, fuck, no tunnels. I guess this is bullshit.
And in 2005, one of the children, as an adult, retracted all allegations of abuse. Because, I mean, this kid's probably dealing with this their whole, their trauma was not that they were abused by Satanists.
No, it was that mom and dad made me say all this bullshit in a court of law.
For sure.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. So that brings me to, I would say it's the bookend of the Gen X, specifically Gen X experience. So in the early 90s, we had the case of the West Memphis 3.
Uh-huh.
So, right, I don't know how much you know about that.
I don't know about this one at all.
Oh,
I remember the other one, the one we just talked about, the McMartin case, more than this one.
So this one was great. So that one was in the 80s, which, of course, we were little. We would have been about the age of the children at the time, right? And then the West Memphis 3 case happened in the early 90s, so when we were in high school, early college, right?
Okay.
So 3 men convicted as teenagers in 1994 of the 1993 murders of 3 boys in West Memphis, Arkansas. There was zero evidence that these 3 young men had done anything. None. The only reason they focused on them was one of them happened to be a goth kid. He was into Wicca. He was into wearing all black and eyeliner and stuff like that. So the law enforcement of West Memphis, Arkansas decided, yeah, well, fuck that kid. We're going to go for it.
Right, yeah.
That's it.
Fucking weirdo.
That is literally the only evidence they had. There's no evidence. sentence.
Honestly, it sounds reasonable.
Sure.
So based on my biased feelings about law enforcement in small southern towns,
exactly,
and being an outsider in one of those towns, I get it.
These kids were actually sentenced in the killing of these children. The Damien Eccles, who was the goth kid, was sentenced to death. He was on death row, literally, for a crime he did not commit. Jesse Miskelly, who was an acquaintance, not even a friend, but he was neurodivergent, which is the word we use today. At the time, they used other words. He's the one that made the false confessions because they tortured him into making confessions because he was autistic.
Right. Oh gosh, yeah, you can browbeat a mentally divergent kid into making a confession.
So he got life imprisonment plus 2 20-year sentences.
Damn.
And Jason Baldwin, who was also barely an acquaintance of Damien Eccles, was sentenced to life in prison. These kids barely knew each other, and yet they all three got sentenced. And
so somebody just wanted. I'm guessing at the heart of it, somebody was up for fucking re-election as DA and had to get a conviction on something saucy that would get in the paper.
Absolutely.
Secondly, the cops like to close the book on a fucking case.
Yes.
And not actually do any cop work.
So it was terrible. Like, the miscarriage of justice in this particular case is absolutely terrible. And there were 3 documentaries made on it, which is Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills, Paradise Lost 2, Revelations, and Paradise Lost 3, Purgatory. The first one was made about the case because people were like, this shit fucked up. And then the second was made about after the case because this shit fucked up. The third one, actually, we'll get to that in a second, though these documentaries were the reason that these convictions, they weren't overturned. I'll get to that in a second. So all 3 of these men are free today.
Okay.
They were never found not guilty. They took what's called an Alfred plea, which means that, the city, the state, whoever's doing it, decides that they are going to let the kids out, not overturn their guilty plea, and they're adults at this point, not overturn their guilty verdict, but just say, this is fine, this is over, this is done, and you can go free. Which
basically we don't have to pay you, is what they mean.
Right.
We'll let you go, but you're not suing us, eh?
Yes. So it says, so an Alfred plea allows them to assert their innocence while acknowledging the prosecutors had enough evidence to convict them. But that's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. Because they didn't have enough evidence. One of their supposed evidences, is that a word? I'll say that, was an expert testimony from a man who had handwritten his own certificate of expertise in Satanism. His little certificate, it was hand drawn, and he was like their expert witness on why these kids were guilty.
It was like the guy from Parks and Rec's like thing that says I can do whatever I want.
That's exactly what it was. It was absolutely terrible. So, and it was because these documentaries were made that they got. But here's the problem: there are guilty convictions on record.
Yeah,
that means they will never find the people who killed the children,
and they also can't rent a fucking house or live near a school or get a job most of the time unless you have a very open-minded employer. Like, this is a complete, even though they're free, it's still a damn, we fucked your life good, haha.
Right.
And the people who did it are not going to pay a damn dime for anything.
And it will never be convicted. No one will ever be convicted.
Well, I'm not talking about the people who did the crime. I'm talking about the people who
did this other crime.
I'm talking about the people in the justice system who fucked these kids over.
Right, absolutely.
Which is a bigger crime, honestly, than the fucking murders of whoever else.
So mind you, their Alfred pleas, that didn't happen until 2011. So we're talking these teenagers were convicted to death row and life in prison in 1994. And it wasn't until 2011 that they took the Alfred plea.
Right.
And I get why they did it, because they could have, there was actually new evidence presented. There was DNA evidence, which proved that they were, but it would have taken the trial, it would have kept the trial going.
They would have had to sit in prison for another 10 years
exactly
to get exonerated.
Exactly.
So they said, you know what, if I can get out now, fuck it, whatever.
And that's exactly what
But yeah, I mean, that being said, I do know that if you ever actually do get your conviction overturned, then you can sue the whole fucking system, and then you at least get a payout for, the life you took from me, right?
Right.
Which they're not going to get.
And these kids just wanted to be out of prison.
Oh, I get it. I get that too.
The kid that was on death row. I mean, he was literally going to be killed.
Right. For fucking nothing. And this is the reason.
Being a goth kid.
That kind of shit is the reason why, when I was younger, I used to be pro death penalty because I used to think, well, it was, listen, if you can't rehabilitate a person, then why spend the money to keep them in prison for life? Like, that's bullshit. So I felt like it was the expedient and efficient thing to do is to put them to death. But I've heard so many stories now, especially since DNA evidence became a thing, about people being exonerated, and some of them posthumously.
Yes, absolutely.
Then I was like, oh, that changed my mind completely, because you can't go oopsie and take that back. You've already killed the person. They're fucking, you can't really even take back false imprisonment. Like 20 years you stole from a person.
These were teenagers when they went to prison.
But certainly not. So ever since that, I no longer believe in the death penalty at all. Like, under any circumstances, I don't give a shit what you did.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is still glad that Ted Bundy is no longer with us. Like, I get that, but that was a different time and place. But what happens now is, more often than not, it's disproportionately black men.
Yeah, or people who have some sort of mental problem.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's another thing. Like, you get a person who's a person of color plus has some sort of mental disability, and they just bring them in and say, "Hey, did you kill this person?" And they're like, "Say you killed him, and we'll let you go.
Exactly.
We'll let you get donuts." And
and they're like, "I killed him."
Okay, I killed him. And then they're like, "Okay, great. You're going to jail forever, and then we're going to kill you." Ha ha.
Yeah, which is just proof. I mean, this isn't our fucked up police and justice system, but that's just proof that our police system is fucked up.
It is fucked up.
Literally fucked up.
That's not what the show's about, but
no, but it is. But it also is, because I mean, these are cases that went on for years and were expensive and cost people their literal lives. I mean,
yes,
the two of the West Memphis 3 are now they live very quiet lives. Damien Eccles is still pretty out in the open. He's written some books. He's recorded some music, things like that.
Yeah.
And he moved. I think he moved to New York. He was like, I want to be as far
I would
away
get
from
the fuck out of
Arkansas
Arkansas.
as possible.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, so he's still, he's not like a famous guy, and I don't think he wants to like capitalize on it, but he at least wants to do something with his life. Right. So, and whatever, he's like our age now. Like, he would have about our age, maybe a little bit younger, right?
Yeah.
So it's insane.
That is spooky.
So, of course, there was a lot involved in the Satanic Panic when we were kids. And some of the weirdest things got caught up in this, right? Brands.
Yep.
So, Procter & Gamble, we actually briefly talked about this on a previous episode.
Yeah, I think we did.
That their symbol was somehow, people thought it was a goat head, and they were clearly...
They were satanic or something. And that used to be the largest employer, I think, in the Baltimore area. In the early 70s, that plant sits idle now. I think I don't know if it's idle. I think they actually repurposed the old Procter & Gamble building into something else. It's probably fucking apartments or something now. But I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot of industry in Baltimore now, and it's kind of fucking sad. Like, that probably was one of the things that pushed them to, like, moving their operation to Canada or Mexico, or where the fuck they wound up at.
Right.
My uncle by marriage worked for Procter & Gamble back in the early 70s before all that shit went down.
Right.
That he wound up doing okay for himself afterwards, but I'm sure a lot of people who were working there and had a decent fucking factory job at Procter & Gamble now are just fucked, because there's not a lot of fucking industry in Baltimore. I'm just saying.
And clearly no correlation whatsoever.
Nothing. Yeah.
So one of the other weird brands, again, if you can call it a brand, the Smurfs.
The Smurfs
were considered satanic, right? I guess because the show talked about alchemy. Because there was the whole thing about Gargamel, get the Smurfs and turn them into gold or whatever.
Yeah, he could turn them into gold.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he couldn't. As it turns out, he was inept at it.
Well, I think he was just a bad alchemist.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, also...
Or also alchemy's not really
alchemy isn't real. That could be one of the things.
Those were two things that were wrong. Also, did you ever think that the Smurfs were kind of sort of a clouded anti-Semitic thing? A little bit?
I guess it could have been. I mean, there were, yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
Because the cat's name is Azrael, which I know on one hand, Azrael is the angel of death in Islam, but it's also, it kind of sounds like Israel, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the
angel
that he's named after.
And then also, Gargamel, he has a hook nose and he's balding.
Sure.
You ever notice that?
Yeah.
And then
I mean, I think you could make a case. I mean, it was written by a Belgian, and I'm sure in Belgium
that they don't like Jews.
Yeah, in that period of time there were certainly, but I'm not making any.
Okay, well, I've always felt that it kind of was like some sort of.
I mean, there are parts of Harry Potter that are anti-Semitic. If you really pay attention.
No, no, you don't have to pay attention. It's pretty fucking obvious.
That's true.
I mean, it's Star Wars too, honestly.
Yeah. So McDonald's apparently also got caught up in the Satanic Panic.
Oh, did they? They have a Satanic Panic Happy Meal?
Well, no, I don't. So I didn't make notes on this, but what I read was that that would have been awesome. You get a little Baphomet, a little. If you're a boy, you get a little Baphomet. If you're a girl, you get a little Hecate.
Or Lilith.
A little Lilith. But apparently, at one point, what's his name? Who's the owner?
I don't know. Roy Cobb,
Ray Croft,
something like that. I don't know.
The owner of McDonald's.
This is
Mr. McDonald.
Ronald, that clown.
Yeah. Okay. So they got letters from people saying that McDonald's was a Satan. Was promoting Satan to the people. Mm-hmm. And at first they wrote it off, but then they were getting hundreds of letters.
Yeah.
Hundreds of letters from people accusing them of being a shill for Satan.
I think Burger King was behind this. There was a thing similar to this, and it wasn't satanic, but I think there was a thing like this where somebody started some sort of like rumor campaign about Snapple being racist.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think it's a thing sometimes, like some sort of like underhanded fucking like viral guerrilla marketing that people do to like fuck around and piss off the competition or something.
Right.
I don't know. So my money's on Burger King being behind the Satanic Panic.
So
Burger King sucks. All their food's terrible, and it'll give you a stomachache.
I used to like Burger King in college. I did not like McDonald's.
I'm not necessarily saying that McDonald's is good for you.
I would like to point out that even McDonald's now, like whenever I go to I haven't been to McDonald's in years, but when I do go to McDonald's, it's like, oh, we gotta get McDonald's. It sounds so good, and then I regret it an hour later.
I always do that too, but at least I go to McDonald's once every year and a half, and I haven't been to a Burger King in 20 years because. It's just awful.
That was my go-to in college. Burger King or Arby's.
Really?
Yeah. I'll still go to a fucking Arby's though.
Oh, Arby's, yeah, but
they have the meats.
But you're going to spend $10.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. They have the meats. I know what it is that I'm getting. It's shaved meat. It's at least not ground meat.
That's fair. It's not some random gray thing.
It's some sort of. Ostensibly, it's roast beef.
It's true, yeah.
If one assumes.
No, they don't do the specials anymore though, because they used to have like the 5 for $5. Remember that?
Oh,
when we were college?
yeah. Although we were just there because we were on a road trip, so sometimes we go through drive.
You might be lucky to get 2 for $5.
Yeah, there was a 2 for $5 special.
Well, when we were in college, it was 5 for $5.
Yeah, it was definitely 5.
And I would get all 5 of them, and I'd put some of them in the refrigerator, just eat them like later in the week.
Right, but you could not do with a Burger King or McDonald's hamburger.
No, none of that shit.
Because that would not taste good. Don't do that. Don't at all do that. Ever. Or I challenge you to do that. Go get a bunch of McDonald's
Do it and see what happens.
You could also leave a McDonald's hamburger out. Just on your desk.
On the counter, yeah.
For a year or two, and it probably
it won't change.
This might be why people accuse them of being
we kind of gone off the rails here.
We really did. I didn't even play the thing.
Yeah. I know.
All right. So, of course, the 2 other things that most get commonly associated with the Satanic Panic heavy metal music, and Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So did you play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid?
I dabbled, but I did not like
You
it.
were a dabbler?
I was a dabbler.
That's the first sign of levels of Satanism.
Yeah, no. I mean, I didn't dabble in Satanism. I dabbled in Dungeons and Dragons, and that is to say, I had friends who played Dungeons and Dragons, and they were very into it, and they did not dabble in it. They would all week. They would blow an entire weekend playing Dungeons and Dragons. Frankly, it bores me. I don't get into it. I don't understand. I mean, well, I do understand it. I just don't care. It's not my thing. It's not my bag, baby, as Austin Powers would say.
I didn't play it until college, and I'm the person who plays D&D that you do not want to play with you. Like, if you want, literally the term Munchkin, right? Munchkin is a game in and of itself, but the term Munchkin, it was leveled at people who didn't take D&D seriously enough.
Oh, I'm totally that person. Yeah,
I'm 100% that person.
Yeah.
I will. You want me to?
And I'll tell you this also: if you keep me there past 2:00 in the morning,
oh God, no.
I'm like, I'll start like making dumb decisions, and then people will get mad at me. And they're like, "Oh, why are you making that dumb decision?" I'm like, "Cause it's 2 in the fucking morning,
and I want us to all die.
I don't care. I'm over this. Let's just call it off and go home."
I agree.
Like, if this was a goddamn Monopoly game, I would have slung the board across the table and we'd be done already.
I agree.
So,
yeah, my brother played D&D when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5 years older than I am, so that tracks, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't play in high school, but like I said, I was so he was already not in high school by that point.
Yeah.
And I was pretty sheltered, so I also didn't have a lot of friends because I was that kid.
Yeah.
So I did not play D&D as a kid, but yeah, I played it in college, and yeah, I was pretty terrible at it.
The heavy metal, I was mildly into heavy. I was into hair metal, which isn't even
me too.
Heavy metal. It's like that's like fucking entry level metal,
yeah,
right?
Shitty pop music with long haired guys.
It really is. Yeah. It's yeah. I was into that.
Me too.
God damn, the heaviest metal album I ever owned was probably like one Motorhead album or something. Like, I don't really, I like the idea of metal, but then when I try to like listen to piles of it, I'm like immediately like after 3 songs, I'm like, okay, enough of this shit.
Yeah, I will say because I listened to the hair metal. I was into Poison and more into Motley Crue and all that shit.
Yeah.
Much more into that, which is actually fairly melodic. Like, it's not good music, but it's not like
it's just a step above Kiss, really, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. It's much more glam metal than the 70s, based more on 70s glam metal.
Yes.
But I did start listening to some other heavy metal as an adult, and I wouldn't call myself a fan by any means, and it's limited.
Yeah.
But there are some bands now that I appreciate as an adult that I did not as a child.
Okay.
For example, Iron Maiden.
Okay.
Like, I wouldn't actually sit down and listen to an album. But I hear a song, and it's so fucking ridiculous. Like, he wrote a song called Alexander the Great. That's literally just a history of Alexander the Great.
Right.
That shit's awesome.
Yeah. That's actually one of the funny things about Lemmy from Metalhead. I remember one from Motorhead.
Motorhead, yeah.
He actually was a history buff too, and there would be articles. I had a friend who was very more metal into metal than I was, and he subscribed to like one of the metal magazines.
Right.
But I remember Lemmy would publish articles, and they would just be like the history of the fucking steam engine in England. Or something like that.
Exactly.
It'd be like fucking 4 pages of steam engines, but it was written by Lemmy Kilmister because he was into that, right?
Right.
And just liked history, so that was cool.
So I'm about to sidetrack you real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Here, let's. All right. Speaking about weird things, heavy metal or musicians are into.
Yeah.
I recently watched a documentary. It was brilliant. It's called Bathtubs Over Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And it's a documentary about industrial musicals,
uh-huh.
which were $1 million performances that like the big companies would do for like their annual meetings. And they were in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Uh-huh.
They cost more than a Broadway production, and it would be once. Like, it would be once because Chrysler would do their big annual meeting for their salespeople. Anyway, these things, they don't exist in like like there were never real there were recordings, but not like published recordings.
Right.
Like you would get them as a favor. You might get an album that would say not for resale, blah blah blah. So these are things, and you should watch this documentary. It's fucking brilliant. These are things that are not for sale anywhere for any reason, but somehow there became this niche collecting group. And one of the fucking collectors is Jello Biafra. And this guy's obsessed with these things. He's freaking obsessed. So he's in the documentary. He collects these industrial musicals, all the albums, and there are hundreds of them. Like American Standard did one, Chrysler and Ford, and all of those did one. Like any early big business you can think of did these.
Okay.
And they were these huge productions, stage productions, and they would have big names like not Tony Bennett. Oh shit, the guy that was in the Odd Couple. Not
Jack Lemmon?
The other one. The other one. Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
And a very young Martin Short did these.
Yeah.
Because you could get paid a shit ton more than if you were on Broadway.
Right.
Okay. And Florence Henderson did them.
Yeah.
Like huge name people that did them. And they were just fucking brilliant. So anyway, my point is, the reason I'm bringing this around is that heavy metal musicians were definitely not Satanists. Because most of them just like weird shit. Like not Satanism, like they were history buffs or really liked industrial musicals. Like that's what they were into. They were not into corrupting children.
Right.
Ozzy Osbourne did not put backwards satanic messages in his music, I promise.
No, I think the backwards thing is a whole other fucking thing, and that's crazy. 90% of it is you hearing what you want to hear.
Oh yeah.
I will say the only purposeful. This is funny. When I was in a band, I used to purposefully put backward masking in my songs, but I would put like silly shit because I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it would say Satan, but that was in jest.
But it would be funny,
yeah,
right?
Because I'm just like, people are going to play this back. Nobody plays it backwards anymore, but
right. We also don't have that option anymore. You'd have to like digitally manipulate.
Well, when I first got a 4-track recorder, which they used to be cassette recorders, I don't know if you know this or not, but cassettes record, like published cassettes have 2 tracks going forward and 2 tracks going backward. So if you ever heard a song that you thought there was some backward masking in, you could put it in a 4-track player and just play tracks 3 and 4.
Right.
And it would play the other side of the album backwards.
Right.
And then you could actually hear what it said. And I used to do this because one of the bands I liked, Camper Van Beethoven, which is sort of like a indie jam band kind of thing,
right?
From the 80s.
Yeah.
They did a lot of backwards songs. Basically, it was when they were lazy and they wanted to fill out an album. They would take one of the other songs and just play it backwards.
Right, exactly.
And I found this out after I got a 4-track, and I was like, I've always been curious what that song said backwards, and I played it backwards. And I was like, oh, it's just one of the other fucking songs.
It's the other fucking song.
They just lazy asses played it backwards because they just want to fill out the album,
Right.
But anyway.
But right now, like we all listen to our music on Spotify. Like we don't even have the option to play
I don't know how to play
backwards.
the stuff backwards on Spotify. Yeah,
You'd have to do like digital downloads and the manipulation, and then of course with deep fakes, you can literally make any song say anything.
That's true.
So
You could do that.
I mean, which we will get to in a second because the Satanic Panic is not dead, people.
Is it coming back?
Oh, it is.
Everything's retro.
Yes. All right. But real quick, I do want to talk about this video that I watched earlier today, the Law Enforcement's Guide to Satanic
Yeah,
Cults.
what'd you learn?
Oh, shit. I learned all kinds of things. So I already talked about the levels of Satanism. So the satanic symbols, which we talked about earlier, they listed a lot of the ones that were on your little picture.
Yeah.
But the anarchy symbol, of course, and the swastika, which I found very interesting because, it's used by witches, which is really funny right now in our current culture, where the swastika is used by racists. Like, nobody's accusing them. They're the ones coming after the witches. They're the ones coming after the Satanists. But they're using the swastika.
So, I'm sorry, the swastika is used by witches?
According to this 1990 video.
Do you know a witch that uses a swastika?
I do. I know a lot of witches, and I know none of them use the swastika ever.
You know what? Even if I was into Eastern mysticism, which is where the swastika was born,
right? It still probably would avoid it.
I would. You know what? I will say in my youth, I did dabble in some symbology that nowadays I would not, right? Like I actually used to have an Iron Cross necklace that I used to wear when I was a young.
Yeah. See, again, now that's racism. So you
Young-
don't want to do that.
As a young goth kid, I thought that was cool,
Sure.
and now I wouldn't do it. And actually, I've gotten to the point now where even like I saw a preview the other day when I went to go see Batman for this movie called the Northman or something that's coming out.
Oh yeah. So
And it looks like a pretty good movie, but I'm
Yeah.
also like,
worried about Norse mythology bastardized.
but yeah, because I'm like, like if I see a guy out in public with a Valknot tattoo on his arm, I don't assume he's a fan of paganism or North tradition.
Right.
I assume he's a fucking Nazi.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. So one of my favorite parts of this video, and I wrote all these down because I was so fascinated by it. They have the Satanic calendar.
Oh,
So these are all
Brilliant.
dates that we need to mark
well,
down.
that's good.
folks.
Yeah, I'm bad with calendars.
Because it specifically told us not only what days, but what things people did on those days.
Okay.
So they did cover a bunch of the pagan holidays, right? The Candlemas, which is technically
Sure.
Christian, but it corresponds to Imbolc. The spring equinox, the summer solstice, Michaelmas, which corresponds to
Lunasa.
yeah,
remember that?
Lunasa,
No.
and then Samhain /
Okay.
Halloween, the winter solstice. All of these are orgies.
Okay.
Those dates you have orgies.
That
I
sounds-
have been a practicing pagan for 20
How
some
many
years.
orgies have you been to?
None.
Oh,
Not. Why
I don't
aren't
think
people
you're
inviting me to the fucking orgies?
I don't know. You must be the most unpopular pagan
God
out there.
damn, there are no
Because
fucking
I got a
orgies.
saying. I always say what's going on between two people ain't none of my business. But if 3 or 4 of them are involved, a invite is polite.
At the very least. So there were some great ones that were. So January 7th was Saint Weinbald. I've literally never heard of this in my life.
Why was a saint something or other?
Yeah, exactly. Why is that satanic?
Is it Satan Weinball?
I don't know. It was not. But that's a sacrifice day.
And that's on
Kill
the
people.
7th.
7th of January.
Uh-huh.
So right by your birthday.
Yeah, just in front of it. So
we
I
just
kill
gotta-
somebody
we
and the
should do
next
a
day's my
party.
birthday.
Yeah, we should do a party
We
next
should get
year.
together and do that,
Right.
like overnight.
January 17th is the Satanic Revels, which is all about sex.
Okay, I'm down with
Okay.
that.
Right? Here's one that had me really scratching my head very early on in this.
Uh-huh.
February 25th was Beltane.
Uh-huh.
Beltane is May 1st.
Yeah, I was
people.
thinking that's awful early.
It's very early. In the actual pagan calendar, Beltane is a very important ritual, and it is May 1st.
And they say blood. I thought it was
Yeah,
about
so-
fire.
It is for
Okay.
the pagans.
These-
So these are great. March 1st was Saint Eichtal, which is another blood sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a couple of these different climaxes. So April 21st through 26th was the grand climax. Those are days when people do kidnapping.
You'd think that they would have another orgy there.
You would.
I mean,
well, I guess you do then have the orgy on. No, they skipped
I'm just
Beltane
saying,
because they moved it.
why call it a climax if you're not going to get off?
Right, sure.
You
And
know?
then April 30th, which is technically, May 1st is the real Beltane. Walpurgis Night, which is a German
Yeah.
celebration, right?
Right.
That's for initiations.
Okay.
You initiate other Satanists then.
Is that when you drive past them and you flash your bright lights?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then they have to kill somebody.
June 2nd
Uh-huh.
was the anti-Christian ceremonies.
The anti-Christian ceremonies. Yes, very good.
Yes, I mean, June 2nd, mark your calendars, folks.
I'll do it.
July 1st was the Demon Revels.
I'm gonna prank call churches. Is that an
yeah,
anti-Christian
sure, absolutely.
ceremony? Okay.
So the Demon Revels on July 1st, right before 4th of July, folks. Sex with demons.
Oh,
That's what we do there.
all right.
That's
I'm
what
down.
we do. I like that that's in the law enforcement guide to satanic
Sex
cults.
with demons.
Like, where are they gonna? They're gonna go like stake out
Oh, hey,
sex
no,
with demons.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do I just make myself open to the demon? Do I get on Tinder? How do I?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do I need a signal to summon the demon and then have sex with?
Yeah.
What is the process? I want to know. Is there? All right, I'm very confused.
So there's another grand climax that's more kidnappings.
It seems to me like the climaxes really should be orgies.
They really are very poorly represented.
Yes.
Satanic revels are orgies with minors, not just regular orgies, but with minors.
Well, okay.
All right, and then September 7th, you got your marriage to Satan. I guess that's most.
That's our anniversary.
Yeah. September 20th is the Midnight Host, which is female dismemberment. That's what we do on September 20th, folks. Write it down.
Okay.
Write it down. Make the note. November 1st through 4th is the Satanic Revels. More kidnappings.
More revels.
Yeah, and December 24th, right before Christmas, of course, the High Grand Climax.
Which is more kidnapping, probably, according to this damn thing. She didn't say.
I didn't,
but all the other climaxes were kidnapping.
You can kind of
as opposed
surmise.
to, like, to me, it should be like, you know, some sort of sexual
More
thing.
orgies than the orgies are on the pagan holidays. So, and then I just real quick want to go through. I know we have a pizza coming up, so we're going to need to go get that.
All right.
But here are the things that they told law enforcement to do if they were worried about satanic. Don't rationalize. So you walk into a scene, don't rationalize anything.
Okay, so that explains the whole Occam's razor thing I was talking about earlier.
Yes, absolutely. Investigate it. So look around. Are there candles? Are there knives? Are there pentagrams? Look around. All right. And then book the intoxicated. You definitely want to get the intoxicated people out of the scene.
Oh, I'd get a confession out of them before they quit being intoxicated.
Well, then that's why you book them.
Okay.
And then look for, and I quote, the unusual.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And then follow through. Apparently that just means making sure that you saw the unusual and you asked
prosecute,
people,
I think
right?
is what they mean by that. Make sure they get the death penalty.
And ask for help from experts, which as I described earlier.
Experts.
The guy who made his own certificate.
Experts.
Look, here's my other favorite one. Look for the signs.
Oh, right. The signs. That was the list I showed
That's
you earlier.
The list earlier.
Yeah. If you see anything weird like I don't know, like a peace sign or
that's no good.
You know,
it's either hippies or Satanists.
You know that something bad's going on, right?
Either hippies or pizza's here. Apparently, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah,
shit.
Right. Why not? It's
So
already overtime.
I do want to quickly say QAnon is satanic panicking all over again.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of I see loads with the McMartin case and the pizza place. That's just the same fucking story.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a twice told tale is all that is, right?
Exactly.
There's no tunnels underneath the pizza place, just like there were no tunnels under the McMartin
None
Daycare.
whatsoever.
It's horseshit.
Yeah.
If it smells like horseshit and it sticks to your shoe like horseshit, it's probably horseshit.
Probably horseshit. All right. So we do not have a mailbag. We do not have a things that are extra today.
We don't have time for it anyway.
Right, because we got to go eat our pizza.
Yeah.
So next week we will be back because it's the spring equinox next
week. All right.
We're
gonna have an orgy.
We're gonna have an orgy.
Clearly.
No, we're gonna talk about flowers. Flowers are a nice spring topic, right?
I guess so.
I know
not as much fun as an orgy.
I mean, are they? All right. So why don't you take us away, Bill?
All right. Bill has opinions. Is introduced. What am I talking
This is
about?
why we drink, folks.
Bill's opinions is produced and engineered by Laura LaVoy. The opinions of Bill are those of his alone, and except for the ones that Laura agreed with, and vice versa. And none of it had anything to do with our sponsor that we didn't get a dime from, that we just start helping out.
We actually paid him.
We paid, if anything.
Yeah,
I gave him $10.
You gave him $10.
Right. Let's see, what else? Oh, be sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube.
YouTube?
Right?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, and then and follow us on Facebook and leave us a comment on either one of those platforms, and feel free to ask us a question. It might wind up as a mailbag question, or if you have an idea for an upcoming show, we might work that in. We've got a pretty long list of things we're already doing, but
hey, we always need more.
It's true. We'll do a thing sometimes if somebody asks. I guess that's
it.
That's mostly it. Okay.
That's it.
We'll see you next week.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week.
Same bat time.
Same bat channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about flowers. All right, folks. Have a good one. We'll see you in a week.
All right. I'll say.